You're listening to The Foundation of Wellness, a refreshing take on diet and lifestyle, with Jessica Dogert, a registered dietitian nutritionist, and Marisa Moon, a primal health coach. Well, hey everyone, it's me, Marisa Moon. I'm your certified primal health coach and host of today's podcast. And you can learn more about me at marisamoon.com. I'm also on Instagram at marisa_moon_. And I have a free guide for you if you're interested in intermittent fasting. That's what I do. I teach intermittent fasting in a way that makes it set up for long-term success. You can not only grab my free guide at marisamoon.com/iffreedom, along with some free coaching videos I made for you, but you can also learn specifically about long-term success in my new summit presentation coming up on the Habits to Thrive Summit. It is airing October 28th through November 4th. It's completely free and all online, and it's all primal health coaches, including the primal godfather, Mark Sisson himself, who we had the pleasure of interviewing on episode number 41. You have to check that out. But be sure to register for Habits to Thrive 2019, October 28th through the first week of November. You're going to have a chance to learn so many cool talks to help you put new habits in place and reach your goals. And my talk is called How Anyone Can Achieve Long-Term Results with Intermittent Fasting. And I developed a new framework no one knows about yet. It's called the Reset Framework. I can't wait to share that with you, along with another free resource. But you've got to register for Habits to Thrive to get access to this one. So go to bit.ly/habits to thrive. That's bit.ly/habits to thrive. You got it. I hope to see you there. Well, today's guest, I had to get on the show after I sat through her presentation at the Ancestral Health Symposium. Esther Gokhale has been involved in integrative therapies all of her life, and she studied biochemistry at Harvard and Princeton and later acupuncture at the San Francisco School of Oriental Medicine. Then, after experiencing crippling back pain during her first pregnancy and an unsuccessful back surgery, Gokhale began her lifelong crusade to vanish back pain, and she was very successful, let me tell you that. Her studies at the Aplomb Institute in Paris and years of research in Brazil, in India, and Portugal, and elsewhere led her to develop her own method called the Gokhale Method, a unique systematic approach to help people find their way back to their body's natural pain-free way of living. The Gokhale Method continues to grow as qualified Gokhale Method teachers now teach the method worldwide. We talk a lot about that in today's episode. Now, Gokhale's book is 8 Steps to a Pain-Free Back. We also talk about this a lot on the episode, but it has sold over 100,000 copies. I think she said 200,000 copies now when we were talking, and it's been translated into 8 different languages. I mean, this is groundbreaking and can help so many people with recurring back pain. And in 2010, Gokhale hosted the nationally televised program Back Pain, the Primal Posture Solution, which you can get on DVD at gokhalemethod.com. And Esther has taught at corporations like Google and Facebook and Varian Medical Systems. And she also presented at conferences like TEDx Stanford, the Ancestral Health Symposium, and PaleoFX, where I saw her, and the Weston A. Price Foundation Conference and PrimalCon. And in May of 2013, the New York Times featured Esther in an article, and they gave her the title, The Posture Guru of Silicon Valley. She's got a lot to share with us today, and I am coming out with the video version of this episode so you can see all the visuals, because she is walking us quite a few things involving our posture. I have personally already applied many of the things that she suggests, and I'm in the middle of reading her book. And I'm excited to come see her when she's on tour. I'm going to help set up something in Chicago for her so that she can bring to us this new spinal feedback wearable device that she uses to help us with our posture. But it does not have to be confusing or involving tech. She actually tells us simple things like just elongating our spine when we sit and changing the way that we walk or stand. And her book tells it all. You can even look at her free YouTube videos. I mean, she's got tons of stuff for us. No matter how serious you are about this, it can make a big difference in your life. And I can't believe it, but she got rid of her herniated discs by using her own method after everything else didn't work. So pay attention to this one and stay tuned for the video, which will be coming out before 2020. And you can follow me on Instagram and on Facebook to keep up to date with that. Again, it's Marisa_Moon_. And we are the Foundation of Wellness _podcast on Instagram and the Foundation of Wellness podcast on Facebook and Marisa Moon Wellness. Thank you so much for listening to that intro, because here comes the interview. Bye. Welcome to the show, Esther. I'm so pleased to have you.
Glad to be here.
This is a big moment for me. I've seen you so many times presenting at all the conferences I go to, and I had the pleasure to sit down and enjoy your entire talk at the Ancestral Health Symposium, and I haven't stopped thinking about it since. And I also tell people about it. I practice stretch sitting, and I know my listeners are like, what is stretch sitting? We're going to get into all of that, and I think a great place to start, Esther, would be to tell us about your personal experience years ago that helped you start thinking about posture and develop your method.
Well, I came into it the hard way, as you know, with a very serious back problem. L5-S1 disc was very herniated, and it started in the 9th month of pregnancy, and I was told, it'd probably go away. Maybe this baby is sitting on the nerve root, something like that. But it didn't go away. It became worse and worse, and I couldn't really carry my baby at some point, and I couldn't even carry a cooking pot. My mother-in-law had to come and bail us out and help in the household, and I wasn't able to sleep through the night for more than 2 hours. I'd wake up and have to walk around the block to get rid of severe muscle spasms. So it was not livable. It was miserable. And I was trying all sorts of things. I was trying the conventional things, physical therapy, stretching, strengthening. I was also trying alternative things like chiropractic and acupuncture and massage and me checking my head, and I wasn't getting anywhere. I was just miserable. And finally I had surgery, a laminectomy discectomy, which did give me some relief, but I was about a year later, I had the same problem again. I had re-herniated the same L5-S1 disc, and I was being offered another surgery. So this was not good. As far as I was concerned, that had failed as well. And you don't want to make a habit out of surgery. No. It was a very big shock to my system. Like, how did this happen to me when I was so healthy? I was a yoga model in Bombay. I was very athletic and had a very different trajectory in mind for myself. And now suddenly I was facing life as a cripple.
Wow.
And I was being told not to have any more kids because my back was weak and I had bulging discs and what have you. And so this was the state I was in, where I was more or less forced to look wider, or accept a very miserable lot. And wider included techniques that resonated with me, where you're looking at how you're using your body. So Alexander technique is that way. And a plum, French technique that very much inspired me. And Feldenkrais, and just bits and pieces of empowering yourself, examining what it is you might be doing not in accordance with nature. And that's, and looking at indigenous people, looking at ancestral populations, looking at little kids. And that's where I found my solution. So instead of having that second surgery, I was able to get out of pain and slowly and surely become more functional and more confident enough to have a second and third child. There's quite a big 5 years there after my first child. I had to find my way home. Yeah, now I have the pleasure of sharing it with a wider audience. That's really exciting.
I mean, your book is called 8 Steps to a Pain-Free Back and has been published in many languages and sold all over the world. Is that right?
Yeah, we've now sold about 200,000 copies in 10 languages, and it's made its way, which is very encouraging.
Wow.
I read the reviews on Amazon, and these are people I met, and they're reporting remarkable progress, and I'm impressed. I'm actually a bit surprised at some of the stories, because it's quite difficult to follow a book when you're talking about something kinesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to learn to play golf or tennis, you can read a book and it'll be a good guide, but
Yeah.
at some point you need a coach to really do it well.
Yeah. And you have a lot of photos in your book. That helps. All the images are great guidance.
I tried. It has over 1,100 images.
Wow.
Graphics, step-by-step guide. So we tried very hard to teach, and apparently for many people we succeeded in them working with the book alone and making substantial progress.
Well, everyone's probably wondering, what is the method? What are you talking about? But before we get there, I think it'd be great if you talk a little bit more about why you were looking at Indigenous people, what you learned about like watching children's posture, and what that has to do with fixing our back pain today.
Oh, I grew up in India. My dad is Indian and my mom Dutch. And my mom was very much an Indophile and sort of an early hippie, you could say. And so she was in India hunting around for better ways to go about health. Her background is she's an RN in Holland. So she already had disposition to medical things. And she also, after her own 4 children grew up to a certain extent, she took on as a volunteer to take care of abandoned orphans, abandoned babies, to nurse them back to health as their papers were getting ready for adoption. So, and she had to be pretty inventive with those kids. I mean, a lot of it was TLC, but also massages and all kinds of, health explorations, dietary explorations. And so we witnessed all that. In fact, that was part of her point. She didn't want us to be spoiled brats, as see difficult life as it can often be, especially in India. And so we participated and we saw some pretty amazing things work. And then when I was in college, I read Weston Price's book, and that struck a chord. That resonated with me. And as you know, he found wisdom in Indigenous people and in people who were doing things close to the ground. And so that's something that I remembered. Also, my mom used to point out the fruit seller and the sweeper who helped keep our home clean. And she would marvel at her body movements and flexibility and ability to sit on her haunches and sweep the entire house. And
wow.
And she used to take us to yoga camps. And so I was immersed in exposure to people who do things a more traditional way. Mm-hmm. And that stayed in my brain. And so when I ran into trouble, that was one of the, like when I ran into other approaches that referred to these kind of non-industrialized people, that resonated for me. And so that's why I thought, yeah, this makes sense. It doesn't really make sense that I would be falling apart in my mid-20s.
Right.
I would need all these hacks, these Band-Aid kind of approaches, and they weren't working anyway. And so it made sense, like, okay, there's a wisdom of movement and posture that we've lost in modern times. And I need to go and find it, and the places to find it are children and older, wiser populations and Indigenous people. And so that's how I got started. And over the past 3 decades plus, I have been crafting methodology with an increasing number of arrows in my quiver and how to reach people from where they are in a modern framework with modern architecture in their bodies, slumping, slouching, or thrusting out their chests, trying to do so-called good posture, in a way that's counterproductive, and how to get those people to where they want to go, to a more upright architecture that is also relaxed, and that's key. because, the way we go about good posture today is not at all relaxed. Tense our way, stick out our chests, and think that that's what good posture is. And now we even have little buzzy toys to buzz us, to tell us we're slumped, and then we stick out our chests, the way little kids do when their moms tell them, sit up straight, stand up straight. And that's actually counterproductive. It's not helpful. So how to go about things in a wise way, in a way that is sustainable, truly healthy, and pain-free. So that's what I've been working on the last 3 decades, is how to get people there more effectively, more efficiently, not having bumps in the road, not having inflammations and overdoing things and landing in trouble.
Wow. And in our culture, do you think it starts from when we were kids that we learn posture in, a way that is detrimental to our long-term health?
I think it starts day one, coming home from the hospital, if that's where the birth was.
Wow.
You get into these little car seats that are shaped like a fetus, like a C. Yeah. And that's the way we're sat. And then babies are put in those car seats on a regular basis and maybe left sleeping in the car seats as the parents will drag with much difficulty that car seat into a restaurant or wherever to leave the child sleeping. Unfortunately, this very horrible posture. And so, in effect, we're training that baby that this is what sitting is. This is the age at which the baby's neural pathways are being set, which they are learning sitting. And the way we carry them and the way we put them in furniture is what they learn. That's the way we're programmed. And if we teach our babies to sit like that, then when they go to school, they're going to sit like that as well.
Yeah.
Many hours in a dysfunctional architecture. And what I see is that these kids are now standing and walking with distorted architecture as well. Tucked pelvis, the way I like to describe it is they're sitting on their tails. If you imagine the then what we do in modern times is tuck our tails between our legs. We're even taught to do that. Tuck the pelvis is a pretty common posture cue in modern times. It's not sound, but that's what we do. And now that leads to all kinds of dysfunction.
Wow. So you're describing the baby's body shape in a car seat as a C shape. And so they're in this sort of like canopy sort of sitting position where they're not really reclined, but they're kind of sitting up, but they're rounded. So what's wrong with that? The shape of their spine, their pelvis, they're both of them?
We continue that in umbrella strollers, unfortunately, as well.
I don't have kids, so what are umbrella strollers?
It's a sling of cloth.
Yes.
The advantage is that it's really easy to fold up. Like if you live in a 5th floor apartment, you don't want to have a bulky stroller to carry up those stairs, so maybe you have storage downstairs, or you buy an umbrella stroller, which can fold easily, is very light, but unfortunately that one stretch of fabric that hangs like a hammock, kind of, and then we continue that in our lounge chairs as adults, so we preserve that sort of C shape. And the problem with it is manifold. One is the most direct thing is you're putting load on the discs, So you're squishing the front of every disc in the whole spine. You're squishing the front. You're pushing the contents backwards, which is the dangerous position.
Wow.
The nerve roots are right behind the discs. So the discs are just little shock absorbers. Pretty innocent, structures. But if you systematically abuse them in this direction, especially, then you're wearing down all the fibrous layers that are on the outside of the disc. And side filler then can make its way out. And if it's gooping out onto a nerve root, then you are in really big trouble.
Wow. Is that like a bulging disc?
Is when few of the layers are torn, and so it's like threadbare fabric trying to hold the center part in, but maybe bulging a little bit.
Okay.
But herniated disc is when the inside actually breaks through all the layers of the fibrous external part of the disc, and now it's out there where it shouldn't be, and very often pressing on a nerve root, which is not fun at all. And I will share screen for your video viewers so they can see what I'm talking about. And this is my MRI when I was 27. You see the date there. And you can see that I had a very swayed back. I had an arch in my lower back.
Okay.
You can see this very large protrusion at L5-S1. L5-S1 is the lowest joint in the spine. And I had herniated my disc. And so this is the goop that was squeezed out. And you can see how it's pressing against the spinal cord, pushing it out of the way. The radiologist has, for dramatic effect, put a few kind of starburst signs out there to show how, and it's a very dramatic herniation. Like he said, on a scale from 0 to 10, this is a 9. Said, I haven't seen one like that in about 6 months. It was a huge herniation.
Wow.
And
this is probably a common area too, right?
It's the number 2 most frequently herniated disc. The one above is the most frequently herniated disc, L4, L5. They're at the bottom of the heap, and this is why. But you can see this shape that I had in my spine, this arched shape, which was nobody ever called that on me, because this is what's considered normal. Yeah. People don't consider that abnormal. It's presented as totally normal. And this is something that I have dramatically changed in my spine. And it's and I can show you what my current disc and spinal shape looks like by sharing screen again.
How the shape has changed?
The shape has dramatically changed, and you can see it here. So you can see how I have a J spine now. Yeah, you can see how the upper part is much straighter, and my behind is behind. And if I mark this as my target shape, I'm using my spine tracker wearable, something that we have invented in our company to help people learn better.
Okay, just to explain to who's listening and not watching, she's showing me a digital screen on her device or her phone with a straight line down the center that kind of curves at the end, similar to what, a hockey stick, would you say?
Yes.
Esther?
It's like a modern J. And now if I arch my back, you can actually see how that's a very different shape from my current J shape. Okay, This is closer to what I used to have. It's a big arch. And one thing we like to do with this device is to show a simulation of all the vertebrae and the discs that are in that area. And so right now you can see that the discs are happy. They are, neutral color. But if I go to my shape that I used to have with the big arch in it, you can see how there's a big arch, and you see how every disc in my lower back is loaded and reddened. So unless I restore my back shape to its current J shape, that you see this, the disc's happy again.
You changed your whole neuroconnective relationship with how you move your spine. I mean, just for anyone who's listening, I want you to imagine she showed us her MRI, and we could literally see her spinal cord in there and the way it was curving when she was in deep pain and had herniated discs. And then she has this real time feedback device that she's wearing on her back right now, and she's showing us how her posture has changed and in real time on this device. She gave us an example. So when you said when you arched your back, are you talking about sticking your chest out? Like you said, you used to be a gymnast, right? So arching your back like a gymnast. I see.
Exactly. And, it's very interesting that in modern culture, there's a lot of pressure on women to have that kind of shape. Either you're told to sit up straight, stand up straight, be a good girl, and have good posture that way.
Mm-hmm.
Or now you're expected to stick out your chest, stick out your bum, and arch your spine. Yeah. And if you're in gymnastics, and only female gymnasts have this pressure, that at the end of every routine, you're expected to throw out your chest. That's the end of your routine. And that's what we all did. And so I had internalized that structure also in yoga and back bending. There's a little distinction made between a back bend that happens in the upper lumbar spine and a back bend that happens at its correct place at L5S1. Yeah. And so I used to just arch my back routinely. I retained that in my baselines, posture. And from my current point of view, that was why I had weakened my spine so much, so that when I was pregnant, it kind of fell apart, and I had this huge problem. And it wasn't till I changed my structure that I was able to address the root of the problem. I never needed that second surgery. And now for the last 20 plus years, I have not had any problem at all. Fantastic.
Amazing. Well, I think our listeners might be curious, what is the Gokhale Method? What did you ultimately come up with? What are you helping other people get rid of their herniated discs with? Tell us about your method.
So it's a method that has crafted a pathway that takes people from where they are to where they want to be. Back to the architecture of their ancestors, back to the architecture they had when they were 2 years old, back to the architecture that you still see in fewer and fewer non-industrialized cultures today. And it gets you there really quickly and really effectively. And in that process, most musculoskeletal aches and pains disappear.
Whoa.
And there are a whole bunch of other benefits that accrue, things that people are not expecting. Digestion is improved. Breathing is improved. Appearance, athletic performance, things that make sense once you stop to think about it. But at first, and at best, people are expecting maybe a little bit of help with their nuts and bolts. And so they are very pleasantly surprised to find help for those beyond their expectations usually, and help in many other directions as well.
Well, I haven't read your whole book, but I'm really excited to, number one. And I already started applying a couple of the very basic concepts I hope you'll share with us today, like stretch sitting and stretch lying. When I'm driving, and I'm in pain a lot when I'm driving. I'm only 36. I don't have any bulging or herniated discs, but I have constant knots in my back like the average person does, and I have never found relief. I thought it was just the types of seats that we have in the cars, which I'm sure is a big part of it. But as soon as I started stretch sitting, Esther, I get immediate relief. I mean, you just said that you get fast results with the Gokhale Method. Why don't we talk about stretch sitting? Because I've experienced firsthand, it's like immediate gratification. I do have to remind myself. I don't know when it will become a habit. I have to constantly remind myself, like, oh yeah, I have to stretch sit. But why don't you talk about stretch sitting? Because that's something everyone can try.
So stretch sitting is a very good place to begin, because we're all sitting to some degree, even the paleo and primal people among us who are trying to get rid of their furniture and so on, planes, in cars. Maybe they play an instrument like the piano. There are a lot of situations where you are going to be sitting. And I actually think sitting has been very maligned because we do it so poorly, and because we do it for like 8 straight hours, which is totally not a good idea. But it can be used to good effect. So it can be used to improve your architecture and improve your health if you do it well. So stretch sitting is a favorite of mine. I often start people with this. And so the idea is that you would sit well back in a chair. Now you do an implement for stretch sitting. You need something around mid-back level that you are going to use to hook yourself to. It needs to have friction. So it's simple as a towel. If you have a fabric chair and the towel will hold. If you have a leather chair or a metal or wood or plastic chair, the towel is just going to slip down. And then you have to become a bit of an engineer. And people would get annoyed. They would say, come on, don't be lazy. Design something. And that's when I designed my stretch sit cushion, which has 8 sticky nubs, kind of frictiony nubs sewn into it. And it has a strap so you can tie it to just about any chair. And we have a video on our website on how to tie it to any chair. And it's really helpful. So it was originally designed for a car seat. And you hang it like a necklace from the headrest. And it meets you mid-back. So, and then I ended up designing my chair because people would ask me how to fix their chair. And I got tired of bungee cords and clothes pegs and what have you to try to fix some very challenging chairs. And so our chair has the 8 sticky nubs sewn into the back. So whether you have our chair or you have a stretch sit cushion or you have a towel that you are able to tie up and keep in place, you want something behind you that has friction. And then you are coming away from that backrest, whatever it is, and you are elongating your back in 2 ways. And the first way is a tricky way for many people because it's the opposite of what we've been training ourselves to do in the name of good posture. It is bringing your chest in and down rather than sticking it out and up. Yeah. So because it's such a strange technique, I encourage people to use their hands to gently guide the bottom of their rib cage. So right under the breast, where you still find bone. So it's part of the rib cage. And then you gently, with your fists, can push in and down. And as you do this, the whole rib cage is rotating. It's kind of rotating forward so that the back of the rib cage is going up and out. And what that does is it flattens and lengthens the lumbar spine. See, this is the lumbar spine. Top is supposed to be arched. It's supposed to be S-shaped. And that is one of my biggest objections. Yeah, I teach a J spine, not an S spine. And I argue it in many ways. We can talk about those later, but I think it's totally logical and compelling. And that the spine is supposed to be J-shaped, not S-shaped. Just like the earth is round, not flat. Ton of people thought it was flat for very many years, did not make it flat. And right now, many people are working with this wrong paradigm of an S-shaped spine. And I'm teaching a J spine, and this is step 1 on how you get there. This is how you cultivate a straight upper part of your J.
Okay, so step 1, I want everyone to visualize now. She's leaning forward a little bit while she sits in her chair, and she's placing her fists on her rib cage underneath her breasts and leaning forward quite a bit to extend the rib cage back so I don't know, you explain it better than me.
So that the spine is becoming flatter and longer, the lumbar spine. The small of your back is no longer arched.
Okay.
And you maintain that forward kind of slight crunch, and then use your hands somewhere on the chair to push you even taller. So it could be that the fists are on the seat, pushing yourself to be still taller. Could also be if you have armrests, you can push on the armrest. That's very good. Or if you have some part of your chair that you can grab, maybe the backrest, maybe a transverse bar that you can push. But in any case, you leave your seat in the chair and you push the top away. And now you've made yourself tall. And now you hinge back from the hip joint to find the nubs or the towel or whatever you have back there. And now part of your weight is hanging from the nubs or from the towel. And you are in gentle traction. Your whole back is slightly stretched.
That's the thing. It's like because we elongated the spine, we finally take pressure off. And so if anyone is not able to watch this video, which honestly no one is going to be able to watch this until it's ready, which will be like November or December. So I want you to imagine she leaned forward a little bit to sort of lengthen the spine as she pushes off the chair and keeps her butt on the seat. And it's lengthening the spine as she leans back, and something on the back of your chair like a towel or the device that she's created will help you get some friction there so that it keeps your spine elongated. And because it's going to want to slouch right back into that position. I mean, it takes some effort at first, or it takes a little friction to help keep you in that position. And I do it in my car, Esther, even without friction, but that's probably why I need to keep reminding myself. So what's the thing that you made? What is the thing that you made? What is it?
It is called a stretch sit cushion. So
Okay.
you can see it attached to the chair there. And it's like hooked on the chair.
Yeah.
I have them all over my sofas. You can see that
Cool.
they feature prominently in my household.
Oh, wow.
And it's because anytime that I'm sitting, I want to be stretch sitting. Why not? Like if I want my spine to be longer, I could be on an inversion table, or I could spend a bunch of cash and go to someone's machine and get a little bit of traction for 10 sessions. And that's not going to cut it. What you really need is hours of stretch.
Mm-hmm.
And so here is a very juicy, low-hanging fruit. Anytime I'm going sitting back on a backrest, why not transform it in a very simple way to be able to hold me up, to stretch my back out. That's what it needs. And it takes me about 2 seconds of effort. Why would I not want to do that?
Yeah.
And so it makes the sitting more comfortable. Now we don't have to sit there and blame sitting. Sitting is the new smoking, all of this kind of soundbite stuff. Now sitting can actually be something therapeutic. You're actually stretching yourself out, and that solves a ton of problems right there.
Which is obviously why I call it stretch sitting, because we are literally like stretching ourselves out and keeping it in that position so that we don't just slouch back down. All that pressure again comes on your discs in your spine, and that's where all that pain is coming from. And it's incredible. I've heard from some of your testimonials how quickly people are feeling relief, and some people who are in debilitating pain, which I am so grateful I have not reached that point yet, and hopefully your method will help me prevent it. But anyone can find her cushion and all these videos. She has an amazing YouTube channel. I just want to shout that out right now at gokhalemethod.com. And Gokhale is Gokhale method.com. It kind of looks like Gokhale if you're like me from America. That's how we read it. But yeah, gokhalemethod.com. You guys can check out her products. And also she's on YouTube, Gokhale Method. And the Gokhale Moment Wedge video on your YouTube channel I found really helpful to help with sitting posture. So I'd love for you to quickly, before we go a little bit further into your method, I imagine that anyone listening in the beginning about car seats and the way a child sits might be wondering, well, what is the appropriate way? How do Indigenous people hold, carry, or position their children in those early years?
Well, the important principle is the J spine again. It's very natural for the human behind to be behind. That's why it's called that. When that phrase was coined, people knew where this part of our anatomy belonged. And so the human behind is not stuck back, but relaxed there. And that happens from when you're walking, it happens from squeezing the glutes. Every step is a rep. And then you have toned glutes, and that holds your behind. It's also not natural to tuck the pelvis, which is a poor guideline we have in modern times. where we overuse the rectus abdominis, the six-pack muscle, pull up the pubic bone, and kind of capsize the whole pelvic area, and don't give the organs there enough space to function well. Lots of repercussions. But so sitting requires the behind to be behind. The way I try to describe it is, if you imagine you have a tail, then your imaginary tail wants to be out behind you. You don't want to have it tucked between your legs. You don't want to be sitting on it. For little kids, we have directions like ducky butt, not tucky butt. Or put your dragon tail out behind you, which works for some adults too.
Yeah.
Well, I've also heard you explain that you might have the child in the car seat, but don't leave them in there. Like while you're at the restaurant, don't leave them in there for, hours at a time because they fell asleep. So I like that. But you also explained and showed pictures, which helped me visually, that when we hold a child, it's actually more of an appropriate structure for their pelvis and their spine, because you're holding the child on your hip and their legs are hanging lower than their hips are. And it's kind of like this hockey stick J shape on their spine and their pelvis. So maybe those carriers that like strap around you, or like the cloth ones where you're holding the baby and their legs are hanging lower, is that better?
Well, there are three important principles to uphold when you're carrying a kid. One is, yes, you want their pelvis to be well positioned and with the behind. The second is that you want the upper part to be either stacked straight or stretched straight by the forearm of the parent. Yeah, you could be holding it on their back and actually doing the equivalent for them that a stretch sit cushion does for an adult in a car, for example.
Okay.
Then the third thing is, yes, you want the legs externally rotated. You don't want them turned in. And this is another bad thing that an umbrella stroller does, because it's fabric. It dips and it rolls the legs inwards. And I blame that for all the flat feet and undeveloped arches we are now seeing in almost all kids. Yeah, that poorly, their legs have been allowed to turn in, and then once you have your knees turned in, your hips turned in, your feet turned in, rolled inwards, now you got flat feet. You're setting yourself up for bunions and knee problems, much higher risk of knee problems because the knees are not facing the right way. And then as adults, these internally rotated legs will lead to hip arthritis. And as an old person, comes hip replacement. So there's a whole chain of disruption that we're setting ourselves up for by allowing the legs to be in. So you want the legs to turn out. You want that allows for the pelvis to settle well. And then you want to also make sure that the back is in the habit of being stacked and elongated. And I have pictures of all of this in my book. 100 plus pictures. We have pictures of people carrying their kids in Brazil and Africa.
Yes.
And you see this J spine very clearly. And there are other little details that are in all these pictures as well, like where the shoulder is held. Like, if you are carrying a kid, and might sometimes is a very heavy kid in these cultures, you'll see 5-year-olds just perched on the forearm of a grandparent. And the key is that the shoulder of the grandparent or the person carrying is well architectured, so the blood supply is healthy going in and from the arm. Like if you got hunched shoulders at the same time carrying a heavy load, that's not a good combo because you're using the muscles a lot, but you're not supplying them with a really robust supply of nutrition and oxygenation and all of this. So shoulders well positioned, your breathing pattern healthy, and that's important too. So it's all these little pieces. And in the beginning, it can sound overwhelming, but that's where our methodology is so special, is that we have really broken it down into bite-sized pieces not trivial. It's not something that I can transmit in 5 minutes or even an hour. Our 6-lesson course is 9 hours. Yeah, spread intensively over a weekend or spread out once a week for 6 weeks. We have these lessons taught all over the world by our qualified teachers. We have over 50 of them. Many of them travel to where there's demand. So, or most recently, by using the wearable on people's backs, we've managed to teach effectively in a 1-day pop-up course. And I'm going on tour with that all over the country. And this one has 2 teachers. Whenever you have tech, you want a second teacher so that one teacher is always left teaching if there's any glitch. But we've now smoothed it out where there are no glitches. And each of the students has the wearable 5 sensors on their spine, has a device where they're seeing the real-time read of spinal shape. We mark targets for sitting, standing, bending, and then they get to practice against those targets while getting hands-on help from us. So it's quite spectacular, actually, how this, and all of their baseline shape is saved on their account. Their target shapes are saved on their account. And then we have a half an hour one-on-one follow-up where people can see what progress they've made. They've read the book in the meantime. They've used their cushion. That's all provided with the course, the DVD, the book, the cushion. And then in the one-on-one follow-up, they ask their questions and we, tie up loose ends. And then we have an inexpensive online program for them to help keep it up for them. So
amazing.
It's cool. It was new.
I already searched for a Gokhale Method expert in my area because I'm in Chicagoland. So if anyone's listening and you're in Chicago, we can go together, and I'm really excited to do that. We can also get 8 of us together and do private sessions, but what she's describing is very flexible. There's all different types of ways that you can get hands-on experience, and they do them every Saturday at this Chicago center I saw, but you can do like an intensive weekend if you want to do it all in one weekend. And I'm excited to one day get the hands-on guidance that I need because, Esther, I haven't really brought it up a lot here, but I have this ligamentous laxity issue. I'm hypermobile, and I'm sure there are some people listening who also are hypermobile. And so my pain and my challenges are usually the opposite of what everyone else has. I'm not stiff, I'm too loose. And it causes different types of injuries than what others are used to. And when I used an inversion table, I basically pulled my hips out of their socket because that's how easily my joints separate. So I love yours because it's very realistic and it provides me the relief that I need and structure that I lack.
I have the same hypermobility issue over stiffness that you do. And it becomes, whether you have stiffness or hypermobility, alignment is so important. And, if you're doing traction, you want traction in the correct joints. Like your ankles don't need to be pulled out of whack and your knees don't need all of this traction. Yeah, it's your back that mainly needs that stretch. And so, our approach is very targeted. And there's no part of what we've spent so much time thinking about is how to not have downside. Like we don't want people's hips to be pulled out of whack. That I call it the Hippocratic oath of exercise: do no harm. If you're benefiting one part, is not a reason to go and destroy some other part of you. It doesn't have to. There is a pathway, and yes, it's taken trouble finding the pathway, but that can shepherd anyone from where they are to where they want to be without event, without any drama and inflammation and pain.
Well, hearing you talk about the way that we sit with our knees, angled inward since we're children, and how that affects our knees and our hips is just really so important to discuss, because it reminds me also that we're taught so many things wrong, like pick up something by bending from the knees. And you taught me that we actually want to bend from the waist. And a lot of people pull their back just like flushing the toilet or picking up an empty laundry basket. So what do we do about that? Like, how can we prevent injury by using these more natural movements? How can we start bending from the waist if we have all this midsection visceral fat and we're carrying extra weight in our center? How can we bend from the waist without getting injured?
So it's not from the waist, actually. Waist is
Okay.
like if you round your back,
Oh, yeah.
can do some serious damage. Yeah. And that's why people are encouraged to bend with their knees, because it is better than bending within the back.
Okay.
But what indigenous people do, and ancestral populations and little kids, is they hip hinge. So they bend at the hip
hinge.
Yeah. Exclusively at the hip. And that is a nuanced technique. And it's really important to get it just right. Because if you slightly round in the back, it's terrible for the discs. That's your entire upper body weight cantilevered out there, weighing on some lumbar disc. Not a good idea. So that we don't teach that as a beginning method. Before you learn hip hinging, we want you to have elongated your spine, both in stretch sitting, stretch lying on the back, stretch lying on the side. That's like preparing the clay. Okay, so for people who have stiff muscle, they are loosening it up and creating some space in there for the discs and the nerves to make it all safer for the remodel. Yeah, that's coming next. The step needs to be about strengthening key muscles. Like it could be the deeper abdominal and deeper back muscles that all need to be engaged to make you a little taller before you start bearing weight or putting impact on your spine. Like, if you go running and you're all loose everywhere and your muscles don't have enough tone, say in your belly and back, then you are basically damaging your discs and possibly impinging your nerves. So it's not a good route. So we want people to learn good length, good strength. Then we're ready for a remodel. So then the next stage is to learn how your behind belongs out behind you, not by sticking out, not by tensing up the back muscles, but by loosening up rectus appropriately, relaxing it, and toning up the glutes, and maybe mobilizing L5, S1. And we have techniques for each piece of this. So and you have a J spine, now you're ready for hip hinging.
I see the progression here. It makes sense.
Yeah, because when you're hip hinging, for example, you are using the muscles in your back. And if everything is already too tightly close together, pulled too close together with bulging discs and what have you, now on top of that, you are using the muscles on your back. That's going to squish things even more, and that could really lead to a problem. Or if you do it slightly wrong, when people are learning, there's a little bit of learning curve. And so you have to make it safe in that learning period. And so hip hinging is never the first lesson that we teach. It has to be preceded by all these other prereqs: good length, good strength, good remodeled shape. And now moving with that healthy length and strength and shape makes sense.
Yeah, I think the visuals are so important, which is why it's great you have a lot of videos. Again, Gokhalemethod.com. You can see all her videos there, and on YouTube at Gokhale Method. And the book I really have to recommend because it's just so sequential and really walking you through the logic in every way. And then you get all the visuals with it. So I think you're sold on Amazon, of course, but you also sell it on your website, and you have different formats. You have a PDF format, which I grabbed at Google Play. So definitely shop around there, see where you can find a good deal because it's worth every penny. And I've seen in your videos, 80-year-olds are using your method to free themselves of back pain. I mean, anyone can do this at any age. If you are in pain now, or if you are concerned with your posture, this is really something you need to try. She is around the world with her method for a reason, and I'm excited to get further into it myself.
Yeah, I think it's one book that is worth having in hard copy. We did lay flat binding because you want to.
Wow.
Yeah. So it just lays there and you can follow more easily. So I personally digital these days, but there are a few books that are worthwhile having hard copy. And we try to make a coffee table book. It's got really good pictures that are also good cues, I've left around for kids, for example. This is how kids learn. They mimic, and we are surrounding them with poor examples these days of our own posture and the models on TV and so on. So to be able to point to pictures in the book and educate children on what they are seeing, what's in these pictures, is a fantastic way to train their eyes. And with our students, we very often end up appointing the kids as posture police, because that elevates their status and equalizes them to being little authorities. And they can very well and gently, there's no need for harshness anymore. Once you have good tools, you don't have to, express yourself helplessly and hopelessly with, how many times do I have to tell you to sit up straight? There's no, you can just use very positive cues, like sit like a prince, or your kid might tell you, like, shoulder roll time, or, if they see you hunching. So these are all different ways of building reminder systems into your life, which is what eventually everybody needs. We need to be surrounded by people who have good posture. So I love, Marisa, that you're putting it out to your clan there to see if anybody wants to join you to go and study with Aurelia.
Yes.
People are lucky you have a wonderful teacher in Chicago. And I am very fussy about our teachers. Each one is trained by me personally. And every month they attend teleseminars. They spend a week with me training here in person.
Wow.
They come every year. They come for a weekend to hone their hands-on skills. And almost daily, we communicate with each other on difficult cases or issues that came up with a student.
Wow.
Because our teachers include all sorts of health workers, it's a rich, textured conversation. So we have physical therapists, chiropractors, massage therapists, acupuncturists, yoga teachers, dancers, you name it. And so if any of us has difficulty with the student, like, okay, my student couldn't prop themselves up on their elbows for stretch lying, help, what should I do? Then the rest of us will chime in, and you're getting, we have physicians and we have chiropractors, so you're getting all these different points of view. And so behind every student, there is a team of all talented health workers of every kind.
Wow.
So it's a very special organization. I think we got a few things right. We are lucky to be tech age. So we're making use of tech.
Okay.
In our organization, in our teaching, to make it very, very rich.
Oh my gosh. Well, if anybody wants to come with me again, just reach out to me on Instagram at Marisa_Moon_ send me a DM. Or of course, we're the Foundation of Wellness podcast on Instagram and Facebook. And we can go to the free class to get an introduction to this, to see if that's something that you're interested in, because then we can sign up for the intensive 9-week program. And I really want to do it. And I think it would be fun to do it with someone else. So if you're in the Chicagoland area and you're interested, 6 weeks, there we go.
Yeah.
6 90-minute sessions. Okay.
Yeah. And then if you want to attend an online workshop, those are also free. I do those. And so, if you're stuck somewhere where there is no help, we sometimes travel to you. And we have a place on our website where you can request a teacher in your area. And when
cool.
there are many of our teachers who are happy to travel. I am going on tour next month, beginning in Boulder and Texas. And now I'm starting in Napa and Berkeley, but then going and eventually all over the country. So if you desire for me to come and teach one of our pop-up courses and you have a following and would like to help make this happen, it is very possible. And so we're very proud of this new offering, in addition to the 6-lesson foundations course that our teachers are teaching everywhere. So this is sort of, this new pop-up course is enabled by tech, by the wearable, by, it allows more to happen within one day, and then an online one-on-one follow-up. It's quite sad. I've been working on an offering like this for years, and we have it now.
Yay! Oh, biofeedback is the coolest thing. Just for everyone who's never heard of that before, it's really when you can see in real time something that's going on inside your body so that you can change your behavior as you watch on a screen the effects that it has from your behavior. So like I've used it in meditation, a biofeedback device that tells me when I'm losing my train of thought or I'm falling off track, or more importantly, when I'm in the zone and I'm calm. Biofeedback's great for anyone with ADHD and neurological disorders, but it's so cool that she's made one that we can wear on our spine, and you can see the way that you are sitting, how much it's affecting each disc in your back and the shape of your spine. So that is awesome. I'm going to keep an eye on that, Esther. I want to see if you guys are coming to Chicago or near Chicago, and if there's any way I can be a part of that, I will.
Awesome.
Thank you. Well, everyone, you can find her on Facebook, the Gokhale Method, and gokhalemethod.com. Thanks for being here, Esther. I know you're super busy, and it's really an honor. I have to say, it's a major honor to have you here. You've been doing this for a long time, and you have thousands of people to prove how effective it is, and as if your story wasn't impactful enough. Thank you for being here and sharing it today.
Thank you so much for letting me get our word out.
You're welcome. All right, till next time. Bye.
Bye, Marisa.